All right, college football playoff live reaction, a little smash hit sports instant reaction video here. The college football playoff just dropped, and it is, I think, almost kind of exactly what we expected, Nick. Let me know what you think here, but let's start at the top. At number one, Ohio State. I think we could both agree that they do have the best resume in the country.
Yeah, I definitely expected them. Well, at least I hoped that they'd be number one because I like when my logic kind of fits the logic of the decision makers.
Yep.
I've had Ohio State ranked at the top of my rankings for probably 3 or 4 weeks now. They beat Notre Dame. They beat Penn State. Georgia has not done anything like that. Michigan has not done anything like that. And honestly, neither is Florida State. So I like Ohio State there at one.
Yeah, and I'm totally okay with how it looks like they really took into consideration like these teams' best wins. And having Michigan at 3, I totally understand. I have Michigan at 3 in my top 10. Georgia at 2 is interesting to me. I think a lot of this top 4 kind of will play itself out a little bit because obviously Ohio State and Michigan play each other. But Georgia, I think, has a shot to leap into the number 1 spot. And they play, the college football playoff has Missouri ranked at 12. They're ranked at 14 in the AP poll. That's going to be a huge game this weekend for the college football playoff. Do you think that if Georgia wins that game, do you think they'll jump Ohio State, or do you think they'll kind of stay at 2 where they're at?
I think there's an argument after that for them to jump. It depends how they win it, I guess. If it's kind of like the Auburn game, I would still give the nod to Ohio State. But if it's like the Florida game, then I would give the nod to Georgia. But yeah, I mean, here's something that surprises me at the top a little bit. The only thing that maybe I would change in the top 10 is Washington, I feel like, has done enough resume wise to warrant a top 4 spot.
Mm.
Beating Oregon, who is ranked 6th, I think matters more than Florida State, who beat LSU, who's ranked 13th. Washington also has a couple other wins on their resume that are better than Florida State's. That Florida State Clemson game was a bit too close for Florida State now that Clemson's 4-4. Who else has Florida State played? Not really anyone at all, right?
Mm.
So that's the only thing I would really change in the top 10. But then at 11, we have Penn State. Do you think Penn State deserves to be at 11?
I think they should be higher than 11. I would put them in the top 10. I would put them in over Oklahoma. I have not been impressed by this Oklahoma team all year, and I get that they got up for Texas. They got up for their biggest rivalry game of the year. But outside of that, I think they've looked okay. And I think Penn State is still a better football team. They have a tough loss in Ohio State at the Horseshoe. They lost to what the college football playoff has as the number 1 team in the country. I don't think that that's that shameful. I could understand the argument that Penn State doesn't have a lot of other great wins on their schedule. They did shut out Iowa, but again, you don't see Iowa anywhere near here. So Penn State will have a chance to prove themselves in 2 weeks when they play Michigan if they need to be higher. And if they don't win that game, guess what? They probably don't deserve to be higher. In
my opinion, Penn State's 9th, I think, in the AP. I
Yep.
like the fact that they're not top 10. That's just my opinion. I remember watching the scoreboard. I forget what game I was watching, but Penn State, Indiana was like 24 all in the 4th quarter. That's a bad Indiana team. That was wild to me.
Yep.
That definitely don't look as good as maybe we thought they were early in the season. So I like them at 11.
So let's talk about some teams kind of towards the middle to the end of this. Oregon State being a 2-loss team, I think, is really interesting because they have some games where they look good. They beat Utah, which they're above here, and they beat UCLA. But they also have some kind of interesting losses. Lost last week, obviously, to Arizona. What do you think of Oregon State being in that middle of the pack range?
So for me, I don't think Utah or UCLA should be in the top 25. I don't have them in my top 25. I just am not that impressed with them. I mean, Utah, if they hadn't lost last week, as the way they did to Oregon, I would definitely understand it. But they kind of got pummeled, and they don't have Cam Rising, and I just don't think Utah is like that great. So I feel like Oregon State's resume is just a little weaker than being 16th, especially like next to Notre Dame, who I think has a much better resume for a 2-loss team, and LSU. I don't know. I'd bump both Oregon State, Utah, and UCLA down for sure.
Yeah. One thing I do want to note, and I didn't realize this when I grabbed the graphic. Shout out On3 for fucking that up. There are 2 LSUs on this graphic. So my assumption is that
really?
yeah, they have it at 13 and 14. I didn't realize
Louisville's 13.
Louisville is at 13. Okay. So I do like having Louisville at 13. I think it's interesting that there are some teams that are kind of flopped in where they're ranked. Louisville in the AP poll is behind LSU and Notre Dame, but they are ahead of LSU and Notre Dame in the college football playoff. I think that's pretty interesting. Let's talk about the back end here. Kansas at 21, USC at 20 is shocking to me, especially with how USC is played. And then they also have Oklahoma State and Kansas State at 22 and 23. A ton of Big 12 at the back end here. The Big 12 has 5 teams listed here. That is very, very surprising to me. I didn't think they would. I think the Big 12 is not a very good league, to be honest. Are you surprised that there's this many Big 12 teams in here?
Not necessarily. I think Kansas deserves it after beating Oklahoma. And then the way Kansas State has been playing, and Oklahoma State for that matter, I feel like they, kind of deserve to be in it. This is the first installment, so those teams are going to, play each other and probably drop out here and there. But I have Oklahoma State at 23. I have Kansas State actually a bit higher than that. And then Kansas I have at 21, which is exactly where they are. So I actually don't disagree with that all that much. But like you said with USC has like the worst resume out of all these Pac-12 teams. Like a 1-point win at Cal, 3-point win. I guess Arizona's good now, so that's, that helps them out. But their losses are the only 2 really good teams they've played. And, yeah, I just don't think they should be ranked.
Yep. Last question here for me anyways. We have 2 group of 5 teams in here in Tulane and Air Force. There's an omission from the college football playoff top 25 that the AP poll has, and that's JMU. Do you think they got that right, having the 2 group of 5 teams at 24 and 25? Do you think JMU should be in there? What are your thoughts on the group of 5?
Well, as far as how I personally have the group of 5 ranked, I have Air Force, Tulane, and JMU in that order. I obviously have them all ranked. And I have Tulane and Air Force both ranked higher than the college football playoff does. But I'm not surprised by this because, again, when you look at resume, you look at group of 5 teams, it's hard to convince yourself to say, like, is Air Force deserve to be ahead of a team like Kansas when Air Force would be like a 16-point dog to Oklahoma and Kansas just beat Oklahoma. But, it's the fact that, Air Force is undefeated, JMU's undefeated. It would have been really cool to see them both ranked. So I'm just disappointed a little, but I definitely get it.
So I don't know if this was taken into consideration, but I wonder if they left JMU off of this because they're not bowl eligible.
Interesting. Yeah. We were recording while it was coming out, so I haven't had the chance to, scroll through Twitter and all that. So I have no idea. That's a good point.
Yep. We'll see. Certainly interesting. Love the first college football playoff rankings of the year. It's bittersweet because it means we've watched a lot of football and we're closer to the end than we are the beginning. However, God damn it, I cannot wait for the college football playoffs.
This is the best part.
Absolutely. So
we've made it this far. So.
Yep. If you guys like this content, make sure to give us a like, subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more college football content, we got college basketball stuff coming up too, so don't miss that. Give us a like and follow, and we will see you in the next one.